It starts with a question you've probably never asked yourself. What if the person you're striving to become isn't really you? Every day, we chase ideals, perfection in career, love, or faith, convinced that the better version of ourselves is out there, waiting. Maybe it's the person who never doubts, who always smiles, who always knows the right thing to say. Maybe it's the image you've crafted in your mind, polished by advice from friends, mentors, even strangers online. But here's the thing. The closer you get to that version, the more you start to lose pieces of yourself that never needed fixing. Consider Emily. She had always been a gentle, introverted girl, passionate about painting and quiet mornings. But her mentor at work said, "You need to be bold, take risks, push yourself more." That's who leaders are. Emily listened. She worked harder, spoke louder, smiled bigger. She became the leader everyone expected. But late at night, alone in her apartment, she noticed her sketchbooks gathering dust. The colors that once defined her creativity faded. She had become the person she asked for, but lost the person she was. And it's not just Emily. You see it everywhere. The friend who molds herself to please everyone. The son who sacrifices dreams to fit his parents' vision. The teenager who masks pain with a forced confidence online. There's a hidden cost in shaping yourself into someone else's ideal, even if it's the ideal you thought you wanted. Here's the truth most never say aloud. Chasing the you everyone else approves of can leave you hollow. Every compliment, every promotion, every nod of recognition is a fleeting reward, like pouring water into a cup with a crack. And slowly, imperceptibly, your authenticity leaks out. You might tell yourself, "I'm just growing, I'm improving, this is temporary." But one day, you'll catch a glimpse in the mirror and realize you don't recognize the reflection. The voice inside you whispers, "Who am I if all these choices weren't really mine?" And suddenly, success feels empty, achievement feels hollow, and the applause of the world feels distant from your heart. This story isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to awaken you, to make you pause and ask, am I becoming who I truly am, or who someone else needs me to be? Because there's beauty in growth, but there's danger in surrendering your essence. And sometimes, the hardest lessons are the ones hidden in our own ambition. Tonight, as you scroll, as you plan, as you dream, ask yourself, what am I chasing? And at what cost? Emily and Michael's stories reveal only part of the picture. There's another side, often overlooked. The relationships that quietly suffer as we shape ourselves into someone we're not. Friends may compliment your growth, but they miss the way your laughter has changed, or how you no longer stay up for late-night talks. Family might cheer you on, unaware that the warmth in your presence is fading, replaced by the polished armor of the person you think you should be. The cost isn't just internal, it ripples outward, affecting the people who once knew the real you. Consider Sofia, a young woman from a small town, whose gentle voice and calm demeanor drew people in. She had always dreamed of becoming a writer, weaving stories of humanity and grace. But her college friends, ambitious and loud, told her, "You need to be more outgoing, more social, more impressive." Sofia listened. She joined every club, attended every networking event, forced herself to be the center of attention. Her social media flourished, and strangers admired her confidence. Yet, when she sat down to write, the words didn't come. Her stories felt hollow, like echoes of someone else's experiences. In pursuing the ideal version of herself, Sofia sacrificed the quiet space that had nurtured her true gift. The allure of the ideal self lies in promises, approval, recognition, love, success. These are not inherently wrong goals, but the problem emerges when we measure our worth exclusively by them. The danger is that we begin to see ourselves only through external eyes, like a mirror reflecting not our own image, but a composite of what others want to see. Over time, this reflection can become more compelling than reality, and we may start to believe it's authentic. And here's the cruel paradox. The more you succeed as someone else, the more trapped you become. Each compliment reinforces the mask. Each achievement validates the persona you've built. And every small sacrifice of your passions, your rhythms, your quirks, feels justified because it's for growth. But growth without authenticity is a hollow growth. You gain skills, status, or admiration, but you lose intimacy with yourself. You forget the quiet joy of being unpolished, of existing without performance. We rarely talk about this cost because it's invisible until the damage is done. It doesn't announce itself with a loud crash. It whispers in small ways. A skipped hobby, a forgotten friend, a feeling that your laughter isn't fully yours. The mind rationalizes, this is temporary. I'll return to myself later. But later is slippery, and eventually, the person you were becomes a memory, like a familiar street you no longer recognize. Even within the world of faith, this hidden cost can creep in. You may aspire to be the faithful person others admire, always patient, always giving, always strong. And while these qualities are beautiful in moderation, overemphasis can create distance from your authentic spiritual journey. You may start to pray the prayers that feel impressive, give in ways that look generous, speak words that sound wise, all while your own heart quietly longs for honesty and vulnerability. This is the invisible toll of becoming who you think you should be. At the core, this isn't just about habits or actions. It's about identity. Who are you, really, when the applause fades? When nobody is watching? When the external standards that shaped you are removed? If you've molded yourself entirely to meet expectations, even your own, you may find that the foundation of your identity has shifted. The person you are is not exactly the person you were, and not entirely the person you intended to be. You're caught in a liminal space, suspended between authenticity and aspiration. So how do we navigate this? Awareness is the first step. Recognizing the hidden cost doesn't mean abandoning growth. Far from it. It means interrogating each decision. Am I doing this because it aligns with my core, or because it aligns with a constructed ideal? It means listening to the whispers of your true self even when the world screams for performance. It means understanding that becoming better isn't always about becoming someone else. It can be about deepening the person you already are. Ultimately, the allure of the ideal self is seductive because it promises reward and recognition. But the true reward lies not in becoming a version of yourself that others will admire, or even that you imagine you should admire, but in embracing the messy, imperfect, unique self you already carry. Growth, purpose, and achievement become most fulfilling not when they change who you are, but when they reveal who you already were. And here's the key truth that Emily, Michael, and Sofia all eventually realized. Chasing the ideal is not inherently wrong. The cost becomes unbearable only when it comes at the expense of your essence. Your dreams, your joy, your creativity, your quiet moments. These are the currencies of a life fully lived. They cannot be replaced by accolades, appearances, or approval. When you pay attention, when you preserve these treasures, the hidden cost can be avoided, or at least minimized. By understanding this, you begin to see a path forward. One that honors growth but safeguards authenticity. One that values ambition but doesn't demand surrender. One that listens deeply to the whisper of your true self, even amid the noise of expectations. It's a delicate balance, a daily practice, but it's where true fulfillment resides. And so, the allure of the ideal self, while powerful, no longer has the final say. You begin to navigate life with intentionality, asking, am I building the person I truly am, or am I just becoming someone I thought I wanted to be? The answer defines not just your actions, but the very trajectory of your life. The journey of Emily, Michael, and Sofia was just beginning. They had stepped onto the path of the ideal self, but what they didn't realize was that every step carried weight, sometimes subtle, sometimes crushing. The world applauded their progress, yet the applause concealed a silent toll, one that would eventually demand attention. Emily's transformation into the confident, assertive leader everyone admired was impressive from the outside. Her colleagues marveled at her charisma, her mentor praised her decisiveness, and social media followers praised her poise. Yet at home, in her quiet apartment, Emily faced a gnawing unease. The sketchbooks she once filled daily now lay untouched, their pages a silent testament to the life she had paused. Each night, she stared at the blank canvas on her wall, wondering if her passion had simply disappeared, or if she had pushed it away in pursuit of recognition. Michael's story was even subtler. He had become the man everyone envied, organized, eloquent, and socially adept. He hosted workshops and gave speeches that inspired others. But inside, Michael's voice felt muffled. The words he spoke were polished, rehearsed, and confident, yet they didn't always come from him. Sometimes, in moments of solitude, he would recall fragments of his old life. Painting in the late hours, the smell of wet canvas, the thrill of creating something wholly his own. Those memories felt like distant stars, beautiful, unreachable, and untouchable. Sofia's struggle was intertwined with her gifts. She had always wanted to tell stories that mattered, stories that connected people to their own humanity. Yet the louder she became in social circles, the quieter her writing voice grew. She would spend hours networking, performing, and curating an image that felt more like a costume than a reflection of herself. The applause she received was intoxicating, but her heart ached for the intimacy of creation. Each story she wrote now seemed filtered through layers of expectation, the authentic spark dimmed by self-consciousness. What these stories reveal is the invisible pressure that comes from external expectations. When we decide to become the person we think others want, we internalize their approval as essential. We begin to measure our worth through external metrics, compliments, promotions, social validation. Every success reinforces the persona, and every lapse, when we rest, when we pause, when we honor our true self, feels like weakness. Slowly, the weight of expectation becomes a constant companion. And it's not just external pressure. Sometimes, we create internal expectations, sculpting ourselves into ideals we believe we should reach. Maybe it's the perfect student, the perfect partner, the perfect believer, the perfect friend. We craft a vision of excellence so vivid that failing to meet it feels catastrophic. Every day becomes a balancing act, a tightrope walk between authentic expression and the standards we've adopted. This weight manifests in subtle but powerful ways. Emily's anxiety grew, not from work itself, but from the fear of revealing cracks in the polished persona she had created. Michael experienced insomnia, as his mind replayed moments where he failed to appear confident or social enough. Sofia battled a creeping despair, a sense that the stories inside her would never fully surface if she continued performing for others. In each case, the cost was cumulative, small compromises stacking into a heavy burden. And then, there's the isolation. Becoming the ideal self often separates us from those who knew the real us. Friends who once connected over genuine moments may struggle to reach the new version. Family may appreciate the outward success, but miss the intimacy of shared vulnerability. The path to admiration and recognition can, ironically, lead to profound loneliness. Here's where the awakening begins. For Emily, it was a quiet evening alone, her paintbrush in hand for the first time in months. She realized she didn't need to abandon leadership to reclaim her creativity. She needed to integrate both aspects of herself. For Michael, it was a moment during a workshop when a young attendee asked him a question he couldn't answer, not because he lacked knowledge, but because he had disconnected from his authentic voice. And for Sofia, it was a sudden heartbreak, a realization that her social success couldn't fill the void left by neglected passion. These awakenings are crucial because they reveal the hidden cost in tangible terms. The cost isn't just lost hobbies, missed moments, or sleepless nights. It's a disconnection from self. And this disconnection carries consequences: diminished joy, lack of fulfillment, and the subtle erosion of purpose. The truth is that purpose cannot thrive in a vacuum of authenticity. A person may achieve external markers of success, but if their inner life is neglected, the accomplishments feel hollow. The hidden cost manifests in mental fatigue, spiritual emptiness, and emotional fragility. It's the silent thief of identity, and it strikes when we least expect it, when the applause is loudest, when recognition is abundant, when we believe we have arrived. It's also worth noting the societal dimension. We live in a culture that glorifies self-improvement, often without distinguishing between growth and mimicry. Books, social media, motivational speakers, they all push the idea of becoming more, doing more, achieving more. There is immense value in striving for better, but the subtle message is, the current you is insufficient. And for those who internalize this, it's easy to cross the line into self-erasure. The hidden cost, therefore, is both personal and cultural. It's personal because it erodes the self you know and love, It's cultural because it perpetuates an endless cycle of expectation and approval seeking. Recognizing this cost is the first step toward reclaiming agency over your identity and your choices. So what can be done? Awareness, reflection, and intentional action are key. Emily, Michael, and Sophia each took steps to reconnect with their authentic selves, not by rejecting growth, but by redefining it on their own terms. They carved space for old passions, recalibrated expectations, and learned to say no without guilt. They discovered that true progress is not about who you become in the eyes of others, but who you honor within yourself. This realization is liberating but also challenging. It requires courage to face the parts of yourself you've neglected. It demands honesty about motives, fears, and desires. And it calls for patience, because undoing subtle self-erasure cannot happen overnight. Yet, the reward is profound, a life aligned with purpose, rich in fulfillment, and resilient against the pressures of external expectation. The hidden cost of becoming who you asked for is not inevitable. It can be mitigated, understood, and transformed into a guiding force. By listening closely to your inner voice, honoring your passions, and integrating growth with authenticity, you can navigate life with intentionality rather than surrender. And when you do, you realize that the person you were meant to become was never separate from who you already are. It was always within you, waiting to be embraced. By the time Emily, Michael, and Sophia reached this point, the weight of their choices had become undeniable. Every action, every compromise, every attempt to embody the ideal self had led them to a crossroads, a moment when the illusion of control met the truth of consequence. And it is at this crossroads where the hidden cost reveals itself most clearly. The point at which continuing on the path of external expectation risks losing oneself entirely, while stepping back feels like failure. Emily sat alone one evening, staring at her reflection in the office window. The city lights flickered, mirrored in her eyes, and she saw a version of herself she barely recognized. She was competent, admired, and seemingly invincible, but the image felt hollow. Her sketchbooks were abandoned. Her mornings no longer began with the quiet joy of painting. She realized that in striving to be a leader everyone respected, she had left the part of herself that thrived in solitude and creativity behind. The choice before her was daunting. She could continue on the path of recognition, climbing higher, speaking louder, and performing constantly, or she could reclaim the quiet spaces that nourished her soul. Yet the fear of judgment, of appearing less committed or less capable, pressed heavily. This tension, the collision between external expectation and internal truth, is a hallmark of the hidden cost. It is here that authenticity is tested, where courage and fear wrestle, and where the real work begins. Michael's crossroads was subtler, almost invisible to outsiders. He had built a life that seemed enviable. Friends admired him, colleagues respected him, and strangers were inspired by his words. Yet internally, he felt increasingly like an actor trapped in a role. He remembered nights when he would quietly paint, only to erase his own work because it didn't fit the Michael others had come to know. The crossroads demanded a choice: continue performing for others, or risk vulnerability by embracing the messy, imperfect self he had buried. Sophia faced a slightly different dilemma. She had chased social validation with such intensity that her creative voice had been silenced. Her stories, once raw and profound, now felt filtered through layers of expectation. When she finally paused, she confronted the possibility that she might never reclaim her authentic voice if she continued to prioritize the applause of peers over the whispers of her heart. The choice was stark: pursue external success at the cost of inner fulfillment, or step back and risk being misunderstood, or even forgotten, by the world she had once sought to impress. These crossroads are familiar to many of us. Life often presents decisions not in the dramatic moments of crisis, but in the quiet tensions between who we are expected to be and who we truly are. The hidden cost of becoming who we asked for manifests in these moments. It is in these choices that the subtle erosion of self becomes most visible, and the consequences of misplaced ambition demand attention. One of the most profound challenges at this stage is the confrontation with fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of disappointing others, and fear of the unknown can keep us locked in paths that no longer serve us. Emily feared losing credibility. Michael feared being seen as weak, and Sophia feared that stepping away from social validation would erase her presence entirely. The hidden cost is not just what we lose. It is what we avoid by clinging to the familiar illusion. But the crossroads also reveal opportunity. Here, for the first time, the characters glimpse the possibility of reclaiming agency over their own lives. They begin to ask the hard questions. Who am I beneath the layers of expectation? What parts of myself have I silenced? And what would it take to bring them back to life? These questions are not easy, and their answers require introspection, courage, and sometimes radical honesty. For Emily, the first step was small. She reopened her sketchbooks. She allowed herself 10 minutes each morning to paint, not for anyone else, not to impress, but simply to reconnect with a part of herself she had ignored. For Michael, it was a deliberate pause, a week without public appearances or obligations, spent in reflection and creation, listening to the quiet voice he had long drowned out. For Sophia, it was reclaiming the stories that mattered, writing with authenticity, and sharing only when it felt true, rather than performing for validation. These steps illustrate a profound principle. Reclaiming self does not require abandoning growth or achievement. It requires realignment, integrating external accomplishments with internal authenticity. It is the acknowledgement that true purpose is not a mask worn for approval, but a path discovered through self-awareness and courage. Yet, even as they began to reclaim themselves, the hidden cost remained visible. It had left traces in strained relationships, lost time, and moments of doubt. Emily sometimes wondered if her career momentum had suffered. Michael questioned whether his network would accept his renewed authenticity. Sophia worried that her audience might drift away. These fears are natural, for the path to authenticity is rarely smooth. The hidden cost does not vanish instantly. It must be addressed gradually, patiently, and with intentional care. Ultimately, the crossroads are not a single moment, but a series of choices. Every day presents opportunities to choose alignment over approval, presence over performance, and authenticity over facade. The characters in our story demonstrate that while the hidden cost is real, it is also navigable. With awareness, courage, and consistent action, it is possible to honor both growth and identity, and to live in a way that nurtures the whole self. At this stage, the narrative shifts from passive realization to active reclamation. The hidden cost of becoming who we asked for is not a condemnation, it is a guidepost. It signals where authenticity has been compromised, where passions have been neglected, and where internal alignment is required. The crossroads, then, are both challenge and invitation to step back, assess, and reclaim agency over one's life, rather than continue on autopilot towards someone else's ideal. As we leave the crossroads, the next chapter unfolds, navigating the integration of past compromises, embracing vulnerabilities, and rebuilding a life that honors both ambition and authenticity. The journey is neither simple nor linear, but it is profoundly rewarding. Emily, Michael, and Sophia have glimpsed the hidden cost, confronted it, and begun the work of healing, reminding us that the most valuable achievements are those that preserve the essence of who we are. The crossroads had revealed the truth. The hidden cost of becoming who they asked for was real, but it did not have to define their future. Emily, Michael, and Sophia now face the challenge of translating awareness into action. Recognition of loss is only the beginning. The deeper work lies in reclamation, in courageously rebuilding the life that aligns with one's authentic self. For Emily, the first act of reclamation was both symbolic and practical. She returned to her studio, not as a leader seeking approval, but as an artist seeking connection with her own soul. The paintbrush, long dormant, felt foreign at first, but slowly, with each stroke, a sense of peace returned. She realized that leadership and creativity were not mutually exclusive. In fact, embracing her artistic side allowed her to lead with more empathy and clarity. Her teams noticed the subtle change, not her performance, but her presence. She was no longer just someone they admired from afar. She was someone who inspired by authenticity. Michael's journey required a different courage. He had spent years honing a persona that others respected, and letting it go, even partially, felt like risking everything. Yet he understood that the weight of pretending was heavier than the fear of judgment. He began to speak more honestly, allowing pauses in conversations where previously he would have filled the silence with rehearsed words. He reintroduced painting into his evenings, not for anyone to see, but for the sheer joy of creation. Slowly, the external admiration became secondary to the internal satisfaction of living authentically. Sofia's reclamation was perhaps the most delicate. Her social ascent had silenced the very stories she wanted to tell. She now faced the vulnerability of writing without guarantee of praise or validation. Yet, when she allowed herself to create without performance, something remarkable happened. Her voice returned, stronger and truer than before. The stories she wrote resonated not because they were perfect, but because they were real. She discovered that authenticity has a magnetic power that no social approval can replicate. It attracts connection not through polish, but through truth. Reclaiming the self is not linear. Emily, Michael, and Sofia experienced setbacks, moments of doubt, and even temptation to revert to old habits. Emily sometimes skipped painting sessions due to work pressure. Michael occasionally fell into the trap of speaking in rehearsed patterns. Sofia questioned whether her writing would ever reach anyone. These moments, however, were not failures. They were part of the process. Healing and reclamation are iterative. They require patience, self-compassion, and consistent alignment with inner truth. A key principle in this phase is integration. The hidden cost had arisen because the characters had compartmentalized their identities: career versus passion, external versus internal, performance versus authenticity. True reclamation required bridging these divides. Emily integrated leadership and creativity. Michael balanced social presence with personal reflection. Sofia merged her social visibility with genuine storytelling. Integration is the antidote to fragmentation, the key to living fully without sacrificing essential aspects of self. Another crucial element is boundary setting. The hidden cost thrives where boundaries are weak or non-existent. Emily learned to say no to excessive meetings that drained her. Michael refused engagements that compromised his mental space, and Sofia limited social validation to preserve her creative time. Boundaries are not restrictions. They are declarations of self-respect. They create the necessary space for authenticity to thrive. Forgiveness also plays a vital role. The characters had, in some ways, judged themselves harshly for past choices. Choices made under pressure, expectation, and fear. Recognizing the hidden cost allowed them to forgive themselves. Emily forgave the months she ignored her art. Michael forgave the years he silenced his voice. And Sofia forgave the time lost chasing validation. This forgiveness was not passive, it was active, empowering them to move forward without being chained by regret. Community, surprisingly, became an unexpected ally. Emily reconnected with old friends who had known her before the climb to idealized perfection. Michael found fellow artists who appreciated his authentic voice. Sofia discovered readers who resonated with her unfiltered stories. When authenticity is embraced, relationships transform. Connections deepen not because they are convenient, but because they are genuine. The hidden cost diminishes when shared openly, and support networks amplify reclamation. This phase also revealed a profound truth. Success is redefined. No longer measured solely by accolades, social approval, or external milestones, success became an alignment between action and authenticity. Emily's career flourished not because she conformed to expectations, but because she led from a place of integrity. Michael found joy in teaching and creating simultaneously, unburdened by performative demands. Sofia's writing touched hearts precisely because it was unfiltered, raw, and honest. Success, in this context, is not an external trophy. It is the inner affirmation of living truthfully. Finally, the act of reclamation cultivated resilience. Facing the hidden cost, confronting it, and actively reclaiming self strengthened their capacity to navigate future challenges. Emily, Michael, and Sofia developed a deeper awareness of themselves and their needs. They recognized the subtle signs of slipping into old patterns and became proactive in preserving authenticity. In essence, the hidden cost, once acknowledged and addressed, became a guidepost, teaching them how to live intentionally and guard against self-erasure. By the end of this phase, The characters were not perfect. They were human, aware, intentional, and aligned. They had reclaimed parts of themselves lost to expectation, integrated their passions with responsibilities, and embraced boundaries, forgiveness, community, and resilience. In doing so, they illustrated a fundamental principle. The hidden cost of becoming who you asked for is not a sentence. It is a lesson, a challenge, and ultimately, an opportunity for profound personal growth. Even after reclaiming pieces of themselves, Emily, Michael, and Sophia faced a truth they could not ignore. The journey toward authenticity is ongoing, and the world does not pause its pressures. Reclaiming the self is one thing. Sustaining it in the face of new expectations, temptations, and doubts is another. This is the final test, the moment when hidden cost could resurface if vigilance wavered. For Emily, the test arrived at work. A promotion to an executive role was offered. More responsibility, more visibility, and yes, more temptation to fall back into old patterns. The pressure to perform perfectly, to embody the ideal leader, threatened the balance she had worked hard to restore. She felt the familiar tug. Be what they expect. Don't let them down. But this time she paused. She remembered the joy of painting in quiet mornings, the satisfaction of leading authentically rather than performatively. The choice was clear. She accepted the promotion, but on her terms, setting boundaries, delegating tasks, and protecting time for her passions. In doing so, she proved that success does not require self-erasure, and authenticity can coexist with achievement. Michael's trial was subtler, internal. A major public speaking engagement approached, and he felt the old anxiety creeping in, the urge to perform, to deliver polished lines rather than honest reflection. The weight of past personas loomed. Yet Michael had learned a vital lesson. Authenticity is a practice, not a single act. He allowed vulnerability to enter his speech, shared personal struggles and lessons, and spoke from his heart rather than a script. The audience responded, not to perfection, but to truth. Michael discovered that courage rooted in authenticity creates connection far deeper than any rehearsed excellence ever could. Sofia faced her ultimate challenge in a different arena. A popular publisher offered her a deal, but it came with constraints, editorial rules that threatened to dilute her voice. It was a tempting offer, recognition, resources, and the allure of reaching millions. But accepting it meant compromising the authenticity she had fought to reclaim. She paused, reflected, and made a decision that would define her path. She declined the offer, choosing instead to self-publish her work and nurture a community that valued her unfiltered voice. It was a risk, but a deliberate choice that prioritized integrity over expedience. These final tests underscore a universal truth. The hidden cost does not vanish when awareness and reclamation occur. Life continues to present situations that challenge alignment between authenticity and external expectation. Success, temptation, and societal pressures are not inherently negative, but they are stress tests. They reveal whether the lessons learned have been internalized or if the old patterns remain lurking beneath the surface. One of the most profound aspects of this stage is the integration of resilience with discernment. Emily, Michael, and Sophia had cultivated courage, reflection, and self-compassion, but applying these qualities consistently required discernment. They had to weigh options, evaluate consequences, and make decisions that aligned with inner truth rather than short-term reward. This is the mastery of self, the ability to navigate the world without surrendering identity. The hidden cost, once fully recognized, becomes a guidepost rather than a threat. It teaches vigilance, signals when boundaries are slipping, and reminds us of the value of inner alignment. Each time Emily safeguarded her creative time, Michael spoke truthfully despite expectation, or Sophia declined compromise for authenticity. They reinforced their reclaimed selves. These acts, though small in isolation, accumulate into a resilient identity capable of enduring life's pressures. This phase also illuminates another lesson: the power of intentional choices. Too often, people drift through life reacting to external pressures, unconsciously absorbing expectations and mimicking ideals. Reclamation is only sustainable when choices are deliberate. Emily's schedule, Michael's speech, Sophia's publishing decision, each was a conscious act of alignment. Without intention, authenticity can be eroded almost imperceptibly, leaving only the hollow echo of past compromises. Furthermore, these challenges illustrate the paradox of influence. By embracing their authentic selves, each character began to inspire others, not through polished performance, but through presence and integrity. Emily's team followed her not because she demanded respect, but because she modeled balance and authenticity. Michael's audience connected with vulnerability rather than perfection. Sofia's readers found courage in her unfiltered stories, feeling empowered to pursue their own authentic paths. The hidden cost, once confronted, not only ceases to erode the individual, but transforms into a catalyst for communal impact. A key takeaway from this stage is that the final test is rarely a single moment. Life continually presents crossroads, pressures, and temptations. The hidden cost is not a finite penalty. It is a recurring lesson. Awareness, reclamation, integration, and discernment are lifelong practices. Each test is an opportunity to reaffirm identity, honor purpose, and deepen connection to one's authentic self. By the end of this phase, the characters' journeys demonstrate that authenticity is both fragile and powerful. It requires courage to protect, discipline to sustain, and wisdom to apply. Yet the rewards are tangible: fulfillment, resilience, meaningful connection, and a profound alignment between inner truth and outward action. Emily, Michael, and Sofia show that while the hidden cost of becoming who you asked for is significant, it is not insurmountable. Through deliberate choices, they transformed what was once a source of erosion into a roadmap for intentional, purposeful living. Having faced their crossroads, reclaimed their passions, and confronted the final tests, Emily, Michael, and Sofia entered a new phase: living in alignment. This stage is not a dramatic revelation or a singular event. It is a sustained practice, a daily commitment to honor authenticity, purpose, and inner truth. Here, the hidden cost is no longer looming as a shadow. It becomes a reference point, a subtle reminder of what is at stake if alignment is neglected. For Emily, living in alignment meant integrating leadership with creativity. She structured her days intentionally, allocating time for meetings and strategic planning without sacrificing her mornings at the easel. She learned that setting boundaries was not selfish, but essential. Each painting session became a ritual of reconnection, a moment to recharge and reflect. Over time, Emily noticed a profound shift. Her leadership became more empathetic, her decisions more grounded, and her team more inspired. The balance she cultivated did not diminish her professional achievements. It amplified them by rooting them in authenticity. Michael's journey mirrored this principle. He had previously equated success with external approval, but living in alignment required redefining his measures of accomplishment. He established daily practices that nurtured both mind and spirit: time for reflection, creative expression, and meaningful social engagement. He no longer chased applause, he pursued purpose. In meetings and speeches, Michael allowed vulnerability to shape his communication, and he discovered that truth resonates more powerfully than polish. Living in alignment was less about perfection and more about intentional, consistent engagement with his authentic self. Sofia's transformation was equally profound. She committed to creating without compromise, developing a writing routine that prioritized authenticity over visibility. She curated her audience not for numbers, but for connection. Over time, her stories gained traction precisely because they were real, unfiltered, and resonant. Living in alignment meant embracing risk, choosing integrity over expedience, and allowing her work to reflect her inner truths. The hidden cost she once paid became a guide, a reminder to preserve voice, autonomy, and purpose above fleeting validation. Central to this stage is the cultivation of habits that reinforce alignment. Emily, Michael, and Sofia discovered that small, consistent practices safeguard authenticity. Journaling, creative routines, reflective pauses, and intentional social engagement became tools to monitor alignment and prevent drift. These habits are not restrictions. They are scaffolding, providing stability and clarity amidst life's uncertainties. By embedding authenticity into daily practice, the characters ensured that growth and purpose remained interconnected rather than divergent paths. Another key aspect is conscious reflection. Each day presents choices, some trivial, some significant. Living in alignment requires awareness of the subtle compromises that can accumulate over time. Emily paused to consider which leadership decisions honored her values. Michael reflected on each interaction to ensure it resonated with truth. Sofia questioned every editorial compromise to maintain integrity. Reflection is both shield and compass. It protects against the hidden cost while guiding ongoing decisions toward purpose. Community also played a vital role in sustaining alignment. Emily nurtured relationships that respected her dual identity as leader and artist. Michael built a network of peers who valued authenticity over performance. Sofia connected with readers who engaged deeply with her stories. These communities provided reinforcement, accountability, and encouragement, making alignment sustainable. They proved that living authentically does not require isolation. It thrives in meaningful connection. The practice of gratitude emerged as another stabilizing force. By recognizing and appreciating small victories, personal growth, and authentic moments, the characters reinforced the value of their choices. Gratitude shifted their focus from what was lacking or lost to what was preserved and nurtured. It illuminated the richness of a life lived intentionally and anchored them in the present, preventing the hidden cost from creeping back unnoticed. Living in alignment also meant embracing imperfection. Authenticity does not demand flawlessness, it demands honesty. Emily accepted that not every painting needed to be perfect. Michael allowed pauses and hesitations in his speeches. Sofia embraced drafts that were raw and incomplete. Through imperfection, they experienced freedom, joy, and creativity, freedom that external approval or societal ideals could never provide. Perhaps the most profound realization of this stage is that alignment transforms the perception of purpose. Purpose is no longer a distant goal or abstract aspiration. It becomes the fabric of daily life. Emily's purpose as a leader and artist converged in her actions and decisions. Michael's purpose as a communicator and creator flourished through each authentic engagement. Sofia's purpose as a storyteller manifested in every unfiltered word she shared. Alignment is not a destination. It is a lived experience, a daily choice to honor self and intention. By consistently practicing alignment, the characters internalized lessons that once came only through struggle. The hidden cost of becoming who they asked for became less a threat and more a teacher, a lens to evaluate actions, a guide for priorities, and a benchmark for authenticity. They discovered that a life of integrity, creativity, and purpose is sustainable, resilient, and deeply fulfilling. Living in alignment is neither easy nor automatic. It requires vigilance, self-reflection, courage, and community. It demands that each decision, small or large, be filtered through the lens of authenticity. Emily, Michael, and Sofia's journey illustrates that the ultimate reward of this practice is not external success, but an internal harmony that nourishes identity, fosters purpose, and transforms every challenge into an opportunity for growth. In this phase, they also recognize the interconnectedness of all stages: awareness, reclamation, testing, and now alignment. Each phase reinforced the other. Awareness illuminated compromises. Reclamation restored lost parts. Testing validated integration. Alignment ensured sustainability. The hidden cost, once pervasive, became a guidepost at every step, transforming past lessons into present wisdom. Through this process, Emily, Michael, and Sofia embodied a crucial principle. The cost of becoming who you asked for need not define your life. With intentionality, reflection, courage, and supportive community, authenticity and purpose are not just attainable, they can flourish. And in this flourishing, they discovered the profound beauty of living fully, not merely for recognition, but for truth, fulfillment, and meaning. Emily, Michael, and Sofia had walked a long, winding path. They had chased ideals, performed for approval, and lost pieces of themselves along the way. They had experienced the hidden cost firsthand: the erosion of joy, the silencing of passion, the subtle distancing from friends and purpose. Yet, through awareness, reclamation, testing, and alignment, they discovered a truth that transcended any external achievement. The cost of becoming who you asked for is not a punishment, it is a teacher. The first lesson is that awareness matters. Recognizing the hidden cost allows us to pause, reflect, and identify where we have compromised our authenticity. Emily saw it in her abandoned sketchbooks. Michael felt it in the echoes of rehearsed words. Sophia noticed it in the stories she no longer had the courage to write. Awareness is not merely observation. It is the first act of courage, the willingness to confront subtle but powerful compromises before they consume us. The second lesson is reclamation. Awareness alone is insufficient. Action is required. The characters reclaimed their passions, set boundaries, reconnected with creativity, and allowed vulnerability to re-enter their lives. Reclamation is not instant. It is iterative, sometimes messy, but profoundly transformative. It demonstrates that while external expectations can shape behavior, they cannot dictate identity unless consented to. The third lesson is discernment. The journey revealed that life continually presents choices and tests. Opportunities, recognition, and pressure are not inherently detrimental, but how we respond to them determines whether the hidden cost resurfaces. Emily navigated professional advancement while preserving creative space. Michael spoke from truth despite expectation. Sophia chose authenticity over expedience in her writing. Discernment is the compass that keeps us aligned with purpose, guiding decisions that honor the self rather than eroding it. Fourth, integration is essential. True growth does not require erasing any part of ourselves. It requires weaving them together. Leadership and artistry, communication and creativity, social visibility, and authentic storytelling can coexist when integration is prioritized. Emily, Michael, and Sophia exemplify that alignment is sustainable only when fragmented aspects of self are reconciled, not ignored. Fifth, resilience grows through practice. The hidden cost, once acknowledged, becomes a guide. Each challenge, small compromises, subtle pressures, societal expectations, serves as an opportunity to reinforce boundaries, honor passions, and sustain alignment. The journey is not linear, but the disciplined practice of authenticity cultivates a durable sense of identity and purpose. Finally, the most profound lesson is that the reward of navigating the hidden cost is not external success, but internal harmony. Emily's leadership became more empathetic. Michael's influence became more impactful. Sophia's stories reached hearts precisely because they were unfiltered and real. The reward lies in fulfillment, connection, and the deep satisfaction of living intentionally. Success measured by applause is fleeting. Success measured by integrity and authenticity endures. The hidden cost also carries a gift, wisdom. Those who have experienced the erosion of self learn to protect and nurture authenticity. They understand the subtle signs of drift, the importance of boundaries, and the value of deliberate choice. They can navigate life with awareness, courage, and intentionality. And perhaps most importantly, they can inspire others, not through perfection or performance, but through the demonstration of living fully, honestly, and purposefully. As Emily, Michael, and Sophia moved forward, they did so with a quiet confidence. The weight of expectation no longer dictated their lives. The applause of others became a background note rather than the measure of their worth. They celebrated progress, not perfection, and embraced imperfection as a natural companion of authenticity. They understood that life is a dynamic journey, and the hidden cost is a continual teacher, guiding choices, refining values, and illuminating the path to purposeful living. The story concludes not with a single triumph, but with ongoing practice, reflection, and courage. The hidden cost is not erased. It is transformed into a compass. Awareness, reclamation, discernment, integration, resilience, and alignment form a holistic approach to life, a framework that transforms potential erosion into empowerment. Emily, Michael, and Sophia's journeys remind us that while the world may offer ideals and expectations, the most enduring achievement is the careful stewardship of one's own identity. In the end, the question is not whether the hidden cost exists, it always does, but whether we let it define us or guide us. The character's journey illuminates a profound truth. Becoming who you asked for is not inherently wrong, but doing so blindly exacts a price. By confronting this cost, reclaiming self, and living intentionally, We transform potential loss into a life rich with meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. Their final insight is universal. The greatest achievement is not the applause of the world, but the quiet knowledge that you have preserved your essence, honored your passions, and lived with integrity. This is the reward that surpasses accolades, the fulfillment that persists when external recognition fades. It is the life lived fully, courageously, and authentically, the life for which the hidden cost was a necessary guide. And so, Emily, Michael, and Sophia teach us this. Embrace the hidden cost, learn its lessons, and live intentionally. In doing so, we discover not only who we are, but who we were always meant to become. The cost is real, but so is the reward, profound and enduring, waiting for anyone willing to listen, reflect, and act with courage.